Okay, so I'm starting on number 15 now, and these problems are super easy, and people didn't remember how to do them. So I want to give you some background quickly here. So absolute value is the distance from 0. And remember, with complex numbers, you have two axes. You have the imaginary, and you have the real axis. So I'll put the real symbol there. Okay? And so you just count the spaces. You count the real spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you count the imaginary spaces, 1i, 2i, 2i, and then 3i. And so you're going to go 4 and 3, and you want to know this distance right here. That's the absolute value. That's the absolute value of this number here, is that distance. So how do you figure it out? It's Pythagorean theorem. And you don't need the i's because we're talking about distances. We're not talking about direction. So we have a 4 by 3. Yes, I know you went 3 i's up, but it's only 3. It's a total distance of 3. So how do you figure out Pythagorean theorem? Now if you didn't remember that, now you feel that you should have got all these right. That's an easy 6 points. So I'm going to go, this is the square root. The square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. Well, that turns out that's 9 plus 16. You add those, that's root 25, which is 5. And that was pretty easy to do. Okay? So the next one is very similar. I'm going to go over 1 and up 7. There's my picture there. 1 by 7. Who cares about the I? It's gone. Poke it out. So the absolute value of it is the Pythagorean theorem. 1 squared plus 7 squared. I don't need the I because it's going to then subtract. I'm trying to find the distance. So the length of that line segment is root 50. And that's not simplified. That is root 25 times root 2, which is 5 root 2. That's the length. Okay, I'm not going to draw the next one. Okay, you can imagine it, but all we're doing is taking this and squaring it, and this and squaring it, and we ignore the I. That's what the absolute value is. So the square root of root 3 squared plus root 2 squared, well, that's 3 plus 2, which is root 5. So root 3 squared, root 2 squared. I don't need the I because I'm talking about distances. So root 3 squared plus root 2 squared. Well, that's 3 plus 2, which is, and it's all under a 5. The 5 is all under the square root because you got to do what's underneath. First, there's implied parentheses. Okay? So let's go to the ones below that. Scroll up just a little bit there. Okay, so by factoring, let's factor it. Well, I notice there's a 2, that goes into 12, so I'm going to take a 2 out. I'm going to GCF first, and X out. I'm left with X. I'm left with negative 6 equals 0. A times B equals 0. That's what we're saying. If A times B equals 0, either A is 0 or B is 0. I'm not sure which one, or both are 0. So let's say 2x equals 0, or we can assume x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, x equals 6, or x equals 0. The next one. Okay. Let's put everything to one side. I don't like factor with a negative here, so I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. I'm going to subtract 56 from both sides. And so it gets me 0 equals 2x squared minus 6x minus 56. And you're welcome to go 2 times 56 and see the factors of 112. But I noticed they all are divisible by 2. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So in fact, when I divide everything by 2, I keep the 0 there. Remember, there's a 0 there, not a y. So I can divide by 2, and I'm changing the look of the problem, but it's going to factor the same. And now that is 28, I believe, yes. So now there's a 1 here. What are the factors of 28 that subtract to 3? Well, it's 7 and 4. You make sure you get your signs right. We want more negatives, so the 7 gets the negative, the 4 gets the positive. Now we have our A times B. So x minus 7 equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0, x equals 7, or x equals negative 4. Okay, number 20. 4x squared minus 19x equals 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Okay, and so now to factor this, I'm going to do it by the AC method. I need to break this out. Okay, to break that out, I'm going to use my calculator. If I don't know, so I got to do the factors of 20. I don't think I need my calculator for it. The factors of 20, 4 times 5 is 20. And I want them to subtract to negative 19. So I'm just going to say subtract to 19. So there's 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. This pair subtracts to 1 to 8. Oh, this is the pair I want. So I'm going to write 4x squared. I'm going to write 20x. I'm going to write 1x, or just x, minus 5 equals 0. But I got to figure out the signs. Do I want more negatives? Yes. So the 20 gets it, and so we just double check that we got negative 19. Negative 20x plus 1x is negative 19x. If I put the plus sign here, then it would be 20x minus 1x would be positive 19x, and I got it backwards so I could flip it. Now we do our grouping symbols to help us with it, and we say what goes into 4x squared and negative 20x? Well, definitely 4 goes into both of those, and x goes into those. So I'm going to take out 4x, and I'm left with x minus 5. Now this has a plus sign, so I'm going to take a plus sign out, and I'm going to go, what goes into those? Well, just 1 does. X minus 5 equals 0. Well, there's a minus 5, x minus 5, x minus 5, so I write that first. And I've got leftovers right there, so I'm going to go 4x plus 1 equals 0. So let's set that equal. There's your A and your B. So this is x equals 5. Subtract 1. 4x equals negative 1. Divide by 4. X equals negative a quarter. There's your other answer. Okay? Let's keep going. Let's go to the back side. So I'm going up to number, so I'm going to 21 right now. 21. Let's let that thing focus again. Okay. Solve the system by using substitution method. Find the values of x and y that go together. So substitution, well, the easiest thing was say y is the same as y, so why don't we replace the y with whatever y is here. So I'm going to just write this as equals. I'm going to cross this off. That y is getting replaced with that. 4x squared minus 4x minus 35. Now I would like it to be set to 0, so the easiest way would be subtract 4x and add 3. And I'm going to get 0 equals 4x squared minus 8x minus 32. So let's factor, let's divide everything by 4. Everything is divisible by 4. That will make our life easier. So we get 0 equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. That's way easier to factor. Factors of 8, 1 and 8, 2 and 4, that's subtract to 2, 2 and 4. Okay, so I can write x and 2, x and 4, and it turns out that the 4 has to win the negative sign, because that's what's here, and the 2 gets the positive sign. So I get x plus 2 equals 0, that's our A times our B, x minus 4 equals 0, x equals 4, x equals negative 2. Those are our answers. And then a lot of people stop there. But what do they really want us to do? I need x and y. I need a coordinate. So let's do it over. This looks like the easiest one to use. I'm going to put negative 2 in there. Y equals 4 times negative 2 minus 3. That's negative 8 minus 3. Negative 11. So my coordinate is negative 2, negative 11. That's one place where they cross. Okay, so really that's one of the answers. Now I'm going to put 4 in, and it's easier to put it into this one right here. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go y equals 4 times 4 minus 3. That's 16 minus 3 is 13. So that means I've got 4 comma 13. And there's 2 points where they cross. Okay? Find the values of x. Well, we're going to have to, we know that from geometry, vertical angle pairs are congruent, so I'm going to set them equal to each other. In fact, you may have done this problem in geometry last year and not even remembered it, that you did it. Okay, so I've got that there. Now I've got to bring everything to one side, so I'm going to bring this over. Subtract 28, subtract 28, and I'll get 3x squared minus 17x minus 28 equals 0. Okay, so does anything go into all these? No. So I'm going to do a big grouping. I got to go 3 times 28. So this is where I'm going to use the calculator here. So I'm going to use the calculator. And why is it not focusing anymore? Okay, so turn it on. And there's a bit of a glare, so I'm going to move it over a little bit. So we're going to go like this, and we're going to say, okay, 3 times 28. I'm going to clear this out. 3 times 28, and then I'm going to divide it by x. And I'm going to look at the table and get all the factor pairs. So when I look at the factor pairs, I've got to go back up here. Okay, so the factor pairs of that are 3 and 28 is 84. So 1 times 84, 2 times 42, 3 times 28. So you see I'm looking at the table here. I'm at 3 times 28. 4 times 21, 6 times 14, and so on. There's a 7 and 12. There's lots of pairs here. 6, 8 doesn't, 9, 10 doesn't, 11. Oh, 12, 7, I already got it right there. So I've already got all the pairs. And I just think about it. We want them to subtract to 17. Well, it looks like 21 minus 4 is 17. So let's write this out as 21x and 4x. And now I've got minus 28 equals 0. And I've got 3x squared. So do I want more negatives or positives? I want more negatives, so the 21 gets a negative, the 4 gets the positive. Now I can put my grouping in here. So 3x goes into both of those, so I'm going to take 3x. So it's x minus 3. Take the positive out. 4 goes into 28 7 times. So 4 Oh, I just totally botched this up. This isn't a 3. This is a 7. Okay? It's a 7. So that works. I wasn't working before, so I had to stop and think, and I divided this negative 21 by 3, and I put a 3 there, but it's actually a 7. But those are the same. And then this is left over. So x minus 7 equals 0. X equals 7. 3x plus 4 equals 0. Subtract 4. Divide by 3. And I get x equals negative 4/3. And a whole bunch of you said, this one doesn't work. Well, just plug it in here and see. If I take a negative times a negative, it's a positive. And then there's a negative here. That's going to be positive. You're going to get a positive angle here. So it's a positive angle. This is allowed. You can try it in here as well, but when you do that, so if I put it in there, so I'm just going to clear the screen. and I go, let's see here, 3 parentheses negative 4 divided by 3 squared minus 5 parentheses negative 4 divided by 3. It gives me 12. And you can try it in here, you'll also get 12. So it still works, even though it's negative, because it didn't give you negative angles, it's okay. So don't say it doesn't work unless you go and try it. Now the 7, we're pretty confident it's going to work. You can go try it, but it does work as well. Okay, we're almost done this section, then I'll stop the video. Okay, so this one here, solve the quadratic equation by finding the square root. I think it's a little bit out of focus here. So let me autofocus it here and see if it focuses back. There we go. So I would like the whole thing squared on one side with nothing else so that I can square root. That's my goal. So what I should do is divide everything here by 4. And then I get, this will cancel out here, this will change that to a 2. Now the whole thing here is squared, so I can square root the whole thing. And don't forget to do plus or minus. Okay, don't forget plus or minus there in front. So this is equal to plus or minus root 2. And the squaring and all square rooting at the same time, because they're in parentheses, is x minus 1, add 1, x equals 1 plus or minus root 2. You've got all the answers. It's in simple radical form as well. This one here, you can do it a couple different ways. Some people subtracted the 56 first. Some people divided by everything by 2 first, and that's fine. Either way, you get negative 56, 2x plus 2 squared, divide everything by 2, and you're going to get x plus 2 all squared now. Now I can take the square root. I can't take it when it's here. I can't just split the square root up, and I get negative 28. That's a little bit of a trick here. I'm going to take the square root now. And whatever I put in front of the square root, I always got to make sure, since I put it in, it's plus or minus. So I get x plus 2 equals plus or minus. Well, what is 28? Well, there's a negative here, so that's I. And then we're going to do the factors of 28. Square root of 4 times the square root of 7. Well, that's 2 root 7. And there's an I. I poked out the I because there's a negative 1 under there. Negative 1 times 28. Okay, subtract 2 from both sides. This is irrational. This is rational, so we'll keep them split. All right, x equals negative 2 plus or minus I 2 root 7. And there it is there. Let me stop the video.